Chapter 31 100,000 Forbidden Cultivation Profound Arts Xianxia. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. As soon as Elder Xianxia had waved the rest of the elders away and was alone with Xianxia in the inner courts of the Holy Maiden Sanctuary, Xianxia was already holding Xianxia intimately. "Xixia, I really miss you. Why are you so late in reaching out to me?" Xianxia lowered her beautiful eyes with a soft sigh. She is indeed beautiful and is a young maiden. Xianxia laughed gently as he grabbed Xiaxia's waist intimately. "So you are jealous of her?" "She is indeed beautiful, but she is a little too young for me." Xiaxia took a look at Xianxia and there was disbelief in her eyes. "Everyone likes young maidens, but you don't like." Xianxia was already feeling under the skirt of Xiaxia and his fingers were inside her panties to feel her dripping wet holy land as he laughed slowly while looking at the ecstasy looks in her eyes. "I like old maidens the best. Especially old maidens like Saintess Xianxia and Nangong Shu." "Xianxia, what are you saying?" To Xianxia's horror, it was said together by both Saintess Xianxia and Nangong Shu, who were both standing in a curvy posture that was indiscernible beautiful to behold. Xianxia slapped his face awkwardly and he had quickly let go of Xiaxia. "I mean, I like maidens with a high cultivation realm." Saintess Xing rolled her golden eyes before she hummed softly, "Xianxia, come with me to my personal palace." Although Xianxia had a look of anticipation, but he was muttering weakly, "I know that this is the ploy of the three of you." "Then why are you following us?" Saintess Xianxia giggled softly. Xianxia took a look at these three most lovely maidens that were flashing around him as he chuckled. "If I don't go to the tiger den, I won't know what the danger is." "Am I not right to say so?" Nangong Shu rolled her beautiful golden eyes as she exclaimed softly, "You are indeed very brave. But bravery alone may not be enough." Xianxia laughed softly, "I am prepared to be slaughtered tonight." As the four of them walked in the darkness, another beautiful maiden who was like the fairy among the fairies were secretly watching them, and she was Fairy Yuyuan. She was truly startled to see Xianxia with Saintess Xianxia, Nangong Shu and Elder Xianxia. "What is going on here? And why is this Xianxia walking so casually with Saintess Xianxia?" She was bewildered, but at the same time, she was unable to follow them through the defensive arrays that were set in the place. This Xianxia was getting to be more and more mysterious each day. Today she had noticed that Elder Xianxia seemed to have ignored her completely. In fact, she had told her, "You can tell Saintess Xianxia about my affair with Xianxia and I can't be bothered anymore. As for your schemes, I can keep it a secret, but I hope that you can quickly leave the Holy Maiden Sanctuary to the other holy lands. This is because we don't welcome you anymore." "We?" Who is she referring to? As Xianxia walked along with Saintess Xianxia, Nangong Shu and Xiaxia, these three maidens were all secretly looking at one another with a meaningful glance. Last night when the three of them were walking back to the Holy Maiden Sanctuary, Saintess Xianxia was actually the first to sigh and said to them, "I guess that the two of you must have already known about Xianxia and me. And I have also known what he has done to the two of you." Xiaxia and Nangong Shu were suddenly very flustered and did not know how to even explain to their saintess. "You must be feeling weird why a lofty saintess like myself will like a low-level cultivator, am I right?" Saintess Xianxia had slowly said. Xiaxia and Nangong Shu slowly nodded. Saintess Xianxia had suddenly asked them, "Do you think that he is really a low-level cultivator? Can you explain why he is unafraid of your cultivation presence?" "You can't, because he is actually a high-level cultivator." Xiaxia was startled, but Xianxia doesn't have his golden eyes yet. Nangong Shu was nodding slowly too. Saintess Xianxia turned slowly to them and said with a distant look, "Xianxia knows at least 100,000 forbidden cultivation profound arts. Concealing his golden eyes is but one of his more useless talents." Nangong Shu was startled, "This is impossible. No one is able to practice more than 10 powerful cultivation profound arts at the same time, or they will soon reach bottleneck with their cultivations." Xiaxia muttered with shock behind Nangong Shu, 100,000 forbidden profound arts. It is not the usual cultivation profound arts. Saintess Xianxia hummed coldly, all 7 of us, the holy saintesses are taught differently by Shenlai and we are imparted by him our unique profound cultivation arts. This time Hua Zixia and Nangong Shu were truly shocked. Shenlai is your master. No one knows the origin of the 7 holy saintesses and no one knows if they have the same master because their cultivation profound arts are all completely different. Saintess Xianxia inhaled softly. He has denied to be our master actually, saying that we are not destined to have a master-protege relationship. He had even joked in the past that if he was really our master then it would be bad karma if we were to attack him one day. And they did attack Shenlai one day because they were completely pissed off by him when he had willfully destroyed his Carnation Goddess painting. Nangong Shu was gasping all of a sudden. He had told me he is Grand Sage Saint Shenlai but I didn't believe him. Is his cultivation realm really in the Grand Sage Saint level? When Hua Zixia had heard Nangong Shu, she was stammering. Grand Sage Saint. Saintess Xianxia slowly nodded. He is really a Grand Sage Saint and you have better believe it. Nangong Shu and Hua Zixia nearly fainted at Saintess Xianxia's confirmation. A Grand Sage Saint had actually banged them. Saintess Xianxia said slowly, how fortunate for the 2 of you are but how unfortunate it is for me. Do you know that Shenlai has never touched a woman in the past? Then she pointed at Hua Zixia, and you are the first. Hua Zixia was truly shocked. Shenlai acted like he was an old hand. Nangong Shu and Hua Zixia were in disbelief. The Shenlai that they had known was really lecherous and he was praising them to the heavens. Nangong Shu stammered, He told me that. He has 3,000 maidens under his belt. Saintess Xianxia frowned with disbelief at Shenlai's shamelessness. Someone has corrupted him somehow but this isn't a bad thing for me. Then she started to smile at them. The reason why I am revealing this to you is because I need your help. Nangong Shu and Hua Zixia were puzzled as they asked at the same time, what help? If our saintess needs our help, we will surely listen to your orders. Saintess Xianxia gently rolled her golden eyes and her countenance was softly sighing. It isn't an order but this requires you to sacrifice your body. I want to prevent Shenlai to choose his Carnation Goddess. Are the 2 of you able to help me? Chapter 32 Shenlai is having a threesome. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Saintess Xianxia had taken Shenlai to a large bed chamber in her personal palace. This bed chamber was so large that even the bed itself was large and could easily fit all of them. Also in the bed chamber was a luxurious open bath that could easily fit 10 people inside and there were many fragrant flower petals floating on the waters of the bath. There was also a mini audience hall where Saintess Xianxia could use to receive her guests and where all kinds of exotic spirit fruits could be seen on the plates that were scattered in here. At the same time there were also many white translucent curtains in this spacious bed chamber to partition the different areas. Shenlai muttered, my Fian really knows how to enjoy yourself. All of a sudden he had frozen when he saw a wooden curtain that was used as a cover for changing clothes. On top of that wooden curtain was a panties and a bodice that he had seen last night. They obviously belonged to Saintess Xianxia. Shenlai growled immediately, what if a man were to come in here? Saintess Xianxia giggled, why? You are jealous. You are the first man to visit my private bed chamber for the last 100 years. For a man that had visited my bed chamber uncountable number of times 100 years ago, you will actually be picky today. Shenlai began to chuckle weakly, well, we are different now. Did you forget that you are my depraved slave while I am your depraved master now? Ha! Saintess Xianxia giggled softly as she asked Nangong Shu and Hua Zixia, did you hear him loud and clear? I will be his depraved slave. Why not the 2 of you? Nangong Shu and Hua Zixia were awkward and they did not know how to answer this question. Shenlai ceased to answer for them, Fian is different. She is a candidate of my Carnation Goddess but now she had withdrawn from it. So she has decided to be my depraved slave now. Saintess Xianxia kicked Shenlai's foot hard, you can dream on. No way that I am your depraved slave. Shen Lai looked a little hurt, really. When Saintess Xianxia saw his pitiful look, she muttered incoherently. If you behave a little then I can allow you to be my depraved master once in a little while. But she was soon smiling. Shen Lai, do you know why we are asking you to be here? No, why? So you can flog me 20 times. Shen Lai laughed nonchalantly. Saintess Xianxia giggled softly as she slightly parted her legs for Shen Lai to look between her legs with interest, and he also got a good eye view of her panties as her skirt was too short. All of a sudden Shen Lai was frozen on the spot when he saw Saintess Xianxia had taken out a barbed feathered whip. The name of this profound whip was actually called the Feathered Sparrow Whip, and it was a saint-step profound treasure that was created by Shen Lai for her. Do you remember this whip? Saintess Xianxia giggled. The reason why this whip is so deadly is because it can cause its victim to imagine the pain even if they can't feel the pain. Just a sight of this deadly whip is enough to cause the imagined pain, and this is created by you. Shen Lai rolled his eyes and he was awkward. Please keep this whip away. My legs are soft now. Saintess Xianxia giggled as she kept her whip away. Actually, I have asked you here for something fun. Do you want to know what it is? Shen Lai was curious immediately. What is it? Saintess Xianxia had already taken a meaningful look at both Xianxia and Nangongshu. You have already seen me naked, so this is your turn now for me to look at your naked self. Then it would be fair for all of us. Xianxia was suddenly looking flustered as she dropped her elder robe to reveal her one-piece short bodice that started from her revealing bosoms to the top of her white thighs, exposing her white panties clearly for Shen Lai to view. Nangongshu, who was the right protector of Saintess Xianxia, usually need not wear a robe. So she was already wearing a flimsy one-piece bodice that could make any man drooled. And Shen Lai could see her white panties as well. Right now, Nangongshu was helping him to remove his robe. What are the two of you doing? Shen Lai had suddenly asked. Xianxia and Nangongshu had suddenly loosened his belt and had dropped Shen Lai's pants to expose his flue. Then he saw that Xianxia and Nangongshu were salivating his flute with their small sweet lips as though they were holding a piece of profound treasure with great care. Although he was startled, but with their fragrant bodies against him, he was powerless to stop them. Instead, he was looking at Saintess Xianxia and he saw that she was looking flustered and was even inhaling softly on her chair. Then he saw that between her two jaded legs, her panties were now damped and was even spitting out streams of love liquid on her thighs and chair. Saintess Xianxia looked a little intoxicated at the sight of Nangongshu and Xianxia arousing Shen Lai, but she merely said, "Tonight is free of charge for you. Have you ever tried to copulate with two of the most beautiful maidens or even three at the same time?" Shen Lai was already feeling the tender smoothness of Xianxia's and Nangongshu's body as he pulled down their bodices to expose their milky white tits. "No, I've never tried before." Then Saintess Xianxia lowered her golden eyes coyly. "In that case, will you like to try?" In this situation, when Nangongshu and Xianxia were putting his flute into their small mouths one by one, would Shen Lai dare to say no? The reason why Nangongshu and Xianxia were both taking the initiative today was that they had suddenly realized that Shen Lai was too valuable and they did not want any missed opportunities with him, especially when they knew by now that he was at the Grand Sage Saint cultivation realm. Now the two maidens wanted to be wantonly depraved by Shen Lai and have his seeds in them. Nangongshu had sticked her tongue out to wet Shen Lai's flute. "My lord, let me be your depraved slave tonight." Xianxia was lifting her big bosoms to rub against Shen Lai's flute, and there was silver thread of stickness that linked from her mouth to his flute. "My lord, may we please you as your sluts tonight?" Shen Lai really could not believe his eyes and ears. He was actually having a headache just now on which of the three maidens should he visited later in the night. But now they had all come to him instead. Was not this better this way? Author note. 1. Prole, it is time for the second holy saintess to appear soon. She is in the not-so-distant script Winky Face. Chapter 33. Saintess Fian, do you want to join us? R18, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Shenlai was actually still looking at the clothed saintess Xianxia, and he knew that she was wet because he could see the wetness between her legs with his sharp eyes. So he grinned and asked her, "Fian, do you think that my charms are really irresistible now?" Saintess Xianxia rolled her golden eyes and she had a flushed countenance. She did not know why Shenlai was suddenly asking her this question. So she answered nonchalantly, "I think that your charms are still lacking." She did not know that this was a mistake. When Shenlai heard her, he was frowning to himself. "That means that I have to bang a few more times more or else I won't be charming enough to get the other 6 saintesses to come back to me for my Carnation Goddess painting." So he decided to put on some extra efforts for his charms. His main point was to make a holy saintess such as Xianxia submitted to him with his charms, and if she did not, then the other 6 holy saintesses may be less likely to submit as well. He began to pull Xianxia and Nangong Shu closer to him as he told them, "You can play with my flute first." When he had said that, Nangong Shu and Xianxia began to use their small mouths with great fervors as they spit out more sticky silver threads, dripping over their mouths, his flute and on their naked breasts. Shenlai had never thought that Nangong Shu would actually be such a good flute player, and as he pulled up her skirt, he was quite delighted to see that her white panties were already wet and the ground below her dripping with her viscous spring waters. This was not Nangong Shu's first time in giving him a fellatio but the second time. The last time that she had tried to swallow all of his yang essence, she had forced to cough out many, for it was too much for her to swallow even though she really wanted to swallow it all. As for Xianxia, she was continuously lifting her head up to look at Shenlai with a look of ecstasy and excitement. She knew by now that Shenlai's first time was with her, and on her very first time with him, she had already lost all her 3 holy lands to him. She had liked him back then, but there was a huge blocker in front of her. She was a lofty elder of the Holy Maiden Sanctuary while he was just a nobody. But now, with the permission of her saintess, this blocker had now been removed and she had no more inhibitions. Shenlai was now lifting Xianxia's short skirt up and he could see that her panties were wet and was even dripping. He had also noticed that her saliva was dripping from her red lips, pulling out silky silver threads as her small lips moved to and fro on his flute, and she was trembling with an exotic pleasure with her body. Saintess Xianxia was actually watching them and her holy countenance was twitching at the sight, even though she had tried her best to remain as composed as possible, but her panties had betrayed her. Her white panties were completely wet now and her viscous waters were flowing down onto her chair and dripping down the exquisite floor. Shenlai was actually looking at Saintess Xianxia all this while because he had wanted her to submit to him. As Xianxia and Nangong Shu were fellating him, he had also pulled down their white panties to expose more of the silver threads that were spurting from their forbidden first holy lands. Saintess Xianxia were now watching with her golden eyes wide opened as she had a good eye view of the 2 holy lands from Xianxia and Nangong Shu. They really had beautiful holy lands, and it was no wonder that Shenlai would be attracted to them. She knew that Shenlai had the diviner premonition sense and had even asked him once, but he told her that it did not always work and the diviner himself would not know his own future. When she had asked him to teach her this skill, he would find all kinds of excuses, so she was forced to give it up. Back to the scene, she could see that Xianxia's second holy land was more rounded, and that may be due to the fact that her second holy land had been taken by Shenlai. All of a sudden Shenlai was giving a large yell and he had raised his flute to jerk forward, causing Nangong Shu and Xianxia to gently fall aside as his yang essence immediately flew in large quantities all the way across the air and onto Saintess Xianxia's face, stunning her that it would be so plentiful and could even fly so far away. Saintess Xianxia was now trembling and she was even sexually aroused with a strange lustful heat. She wanted to submit to Shenlai now and be his depraved slave. Nangong Shu and Xianxia were also startled to see the yang essence on Saintess Xianxia's face, her beautiful adorned hair and on her beautiful slim body. It was only then that they saw that Saintess Xianxia's panties were completely wet and there was a large pool of her luscious waters on the chair and on the ground. She was actually watching them with an aroused look. Shenlai quietly asked Saintess Xianxia, and there was a look of eager anticipation in his eyes, "Do you still want to sit there to watch?" Why don't you join us here? Saintess Xianxia shyly obeyed Shen Lai with an embarrassed look, and she could not ignite the fighting spirit to resist him as she was filled with a lustful desire and her heart had long had a place for him. Shen Lai said gently to Saintess Xianxia as he inhaled softly, "Come forward and kneel before me. Be my depraved slave and lick me well." Saintess Xianxia found herself kneeling down like a promiscuous sow between Xianxia and Nangongshu. She had fully accepted Shen Lai's command and her own humiliation as she moved her small mouth in an attempt to swallow his still firm flute's head. Shen Lai saw that there was a lot of luscious liquid that overflowed from between her jaded legs, and he could not help to stuff his flute into her mouth, as his flute was like a charred steak that was mercilessly ravaging her mouth and deep into her throat. And Saintess Xianxia was crying out loud lewdly, and this had also greatly simulated Xianxia and Nangongshu, who were next to her, as they watched how their most holy saintess was being ravaged right in front of them without a show of mercy. Xianxia and Nangongshu were both flushed hotly, and they were inhaling sexual softness in their breaths. They said slowly but surely, "Shen Lai, please ravage us too." Chapter 34 Shen Lai First Foursome, R18. You are listening at novelfull.audio. All three beautiful maidens had been rounded up by Shen Lai, and they were kneeling on the ground with their butts protruding upward. Except for their bodices, which Shen Lai had rolled up below their breasts and above their butts, they were all completely naked, and the naked beauty of these three maidens were enough to drive any man crazy with lust. The reason why Shen Lai did not remove their rolled-up bodices was because he needed to hold on to it as he rode them as though they were his bitches. Shen Lai now had three beautiful watery butts exposing their holy lands to him. When he was riding one, he began to finger the other two in their slippery first holy lands. Their breasts were all beautiful as they throttled wildly in front of them. Shen Lai could not believe that he actually had a foursome with three of the most beautiful maidens in the Holy Maiden Sanctuary as he skipped the threesome to the foursome. Accordingly to the exotic book that he had received from the old man, if he could persuade at least two beautiful maidens to be his Tao cultivation partner at the same time, then this would mean that his charm would be irresistible enough. The entire bed chamber had become their exotic love-making places, from the mini hall, on the large bed, the floor, and to the baths, everywhere was their viscous yin and yang essences. Finally they had succumbed back to the exotic posture and remained so for many hours that even Saintess Xianxia was bending down as she separated her long slender legs for Shen Lai to bang into her dripping holy land. As for Nangongshu, she was moaning lewdly and her butt was trembling by now. Xianxia actually had the lowest cultivation realm here, and she was already spent as she lay in the streams of lewd luscious water, but she looked extremely fulfilling, especially when she could feel the hot yang essence protruding out with her yin essences. All three of their first holy lands were swollen with the tenderness of their lovemaking, and even their breasts were swollen with redness from Shen Lai's handling. Shen Lai was only slightly tired, but it was still too much for him to service three of the most beautiful maidens alone. He would rather watch them in their lewd acts. He had no idea how much yang essences that he had shot this time, but it was really a lot because they were all covered by his yang essence from head, body to leg and all over the place. They were all determined to squeeze him dry this time, as they kept calling lewdly to ask him to pump harder or for more. "Shoot your yang essences into my wet holy place, please. Harder, Shen Lai. Please treat me as your wanton slut. I am your depraved slave. Please vent all your desires on my body. My holy land is like a flooded lake now. Shen Lai, please rock me harder." Eventually all three of the maidens were moaning their hearts out to Shen Lai. "Shen Lai, I love you so much. I really love you, Shen Lai. Please don't stop loving us." When Shen Lai had heard Saintess Xianxia, he was actually very touched, and in fact, he felt really guilty. That was because among all the 7 holy saintesses, Xianxia was the closest to him, and he had virtually watched her gaining her cultivation realms slowly until she had reached the lofty cultivation realm of a saintess. Shen Lai suddenly had a weird feeling as he looked at the faint fragrance back of Saintess Xianxia, which exuded an intoxicating animus, even as Nangongshu and Xianxia had both fallen unconscious by now. He had suddenly flipped her over, he was gently feeling her delicate breasts, gently kissing and sipping her breasts and nipples. In the past he had never thought of making love to Xianxia even when she was naked in front of him. But today he was filled with great desire for her as he began to kiss her non-stop, from her nipples, up her slippery pink neck and then to her mouth. Saintess Xianxia was actually in tears and she was hugging Xianlai tightly, refusing to let him go as they kissed passionately. Xianlai was perplexed. "My Fian, why are you crying?" Saintess Xianxia tried to suppress her internal emotions as she forced a wry smile to kiss Xianlai passionately, "Although this is not the ending that I dream of, but this is already a dream that has come true for me." Xianlai asked her curiously, "What is your dream?" Xianxia looked at Xianlai and her expressions were really alluring. "I want to be the Carnation Goddess of your heart." Xianlai was startled as he muttered, "This is impossible, so your dream did not come true after all." Xianxia muttered softly before she said dreamily, "I don't care for any titles, do you understand me? You can have your Carnation Goddess, but I just want to be with you." With that, she had slipped into a deep sleep, leaving Xianlai to appreciate her naked body. Xianlai seemed to have sobered up as he recalled the nostalgic feeling that they had for each other and he could feel her sincerity and love. The two of them were really funny. They had both mounted threats to each other when they had first met, but it was more tease than real. If anyone were to listen to their threats, they would be taken in almost immediately. But only the two of them knew that they would never hurt each other. What had he done to his dear Fian? That day when he was attacked by the 7 holy saintesses, Xianlai knew that Xianxia was actually not the one that had destroyed his cultivation core because he was actually watching her keenly as he said silently, "Fian, goodbye. I will be going away for a little while. This is but part of my divine tribulation. I will look for you one day and I hope that you won't forgotten about me." Chapter 35 Jiaing blows for Xianlai. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Xianlai had returned to the training outer court where he was supposed to be confined, the senior protégés had allowed him to enter through the gates. But they were also mocking silently behind him when they saw that he was walking limply and he even had a hand on his back. They were all silently thinking, "This Xianlai is now infamous. He is probably the first man and the lowest protégé to be flogged by our saintess." They had all misunderstood that Xianlai had been flogged. The only reason why Xianlai was walking with a limp and an ached back was because it was too difficult for him to digest 3 high-level maidens for several hours. But he had also a heavy heart as he walked back. It was because he could not bear to tell Saintess Xianxia that he was destined to meet his Carnation Goddess and he had seen her slim back often in his premonition dreams. But he had no idea what she looked like because her beautiful slim back was always facing him. And he was sighing because of this. The 4 senior protégés finally laughed out aloud after Xianlai had disappeared from their views. "This Xianlai is really unlucky. I heard that he has to be flogged every night for 7 days. Judging that several hours had already passed when he was taken away by Elder Xianxia, he must have passed out after the 20 whips. You can't be serious that he can endure the 20 whips. I bet that he passed out after just 5 whips. Yeah, he looks like a weak scholar. Listen guys, I've heard that he can't even aim for his first cultivation lesson. And he needed 300 tries to hit even once, and it was pure luck. What? That must be the new record that is set by a new protégé in the entire history of the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. Pity that this Xianlai has the most handsome face, but he is actually a trash cultivator. A trash has short lifespan and they will grow old very quickly. He needs to be a gold core to halt his aging. I doubt that he can even reach the gold stage. The Yuan-Yin stage will reduce his age a little but not much. He is probably an old man while we are still young. Useless trash Xianlai. When Xianlai had entered into the training outer court, he was actually being spotted by many of the new protégés who were still training late in the night. When they saw that he was limping, many were secretly mocking him silently and was imagining the blistering splits that were on his buttocks. Bet them they could not imagine instead of his blistering splits on his buttocks, Xianxia had split 3 of the most beautiful maidens' buttocks tonight and had even caused them to be unconsciousness. At this moment Mei Xian was having her training, her lower bottom was naked and she was being feasted upon by Chu Feng and Xiong Ba at the same time by banging her hard or by fondling her. Next to them were 2 coily maidens that were also naked in their bottoms and they were dripping lewd juices. They were actually the twin sisters Su Xiaoqing and Su Xiaoxing. Mei Xian was actually in a state of ecstasy as she cried softly, "I have never imagined that having 2 men inside me will be this fantastic, harder." Chu Feng smirked coldly, "I have never imagined that having 3 most beautiful maidens and 1 guy will be this fantastic either. That is because we are the strongest duo in this cohort and in the future, we can have any number of beautiful maidens." Xiong Ba was laughing softly. Xiong Ba actually did not have the intention to remain in the Holy Maiden Sanctuary for very long, it was because there was no chance that he could ever get into the inner court. It was only for his training and he was here just to pledge his celestial clan the World Firmament Society their own utmost loyalty to Saintess Xianxia as her Holy Maiden Sanctuary was their holy land. He was actually the young master of the World Firmament Society and also the future successor. The same was actually for Chu Feng as well, he was the young master and successor to the Heavenly Lightning Courts. And these 2, Chu Feng and Xiong Ba were considered to be the extremes among the new protégés because they had already reached the beginning of the Bros Core cultivation realm, they were indeed young lofty talents of the holy land of the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. As for Mei Xian, Su Xiaoqing and Su Xiaoxing, they were from some minor celestial clans and Chu Feng and Xiong Ba had promised to give them cultivation profound treasures to aid them to enter the inner court of the Holy Maiden Sanctuary and that was why they had given them their chastity. Actually it was wrong to say that for they had already lost their chastity before they had come here. It could only be said that they had lost their first time in this place to them instead. Right now Xianxia had found a pavilion and he had found a bench to lie down for his aching back as he thought weakly. "I have used up too many of my yang essences and hence I am so weak now." Then he had fallen into a deep sleep as his body automatically replenished itself by absorbing the rich spiritual aura in the vicinity and to convert it back to his yang essence. For his cultivation realm, he did not need any spiritual foods or real food to replenish himself. All of a sudden he was aroused by something on his pants and he was startled, it was because his danger sense did not give him any warning. One must know that Xianxia had a danger sense premonition that would immediately alert him to any possible unseen dangers and it was quite impossible to actually kill him. For minor attacks that could not harm him, naturally his danger sense premonition would not appear or else he would have plenty of headaches whenever Saintess Xianxia or other maidens decided to kick him or to pinch him. To his startled horror, he saw that it was actually Jiaying and her cherry-red lips were actually drooling with saliva and she was sucking his little brother. Xianxia was so startled that he could only stare blankly. Jiaying was holding onto his balls and she was licking his little brother. "Brother Xianxia, you have awakened. Did your Jiaying disturbs your little rest?" Xianxia stammered with shock, "Jiaying, what are you doing?" Jiaying looked woeful as she answered, "Brother Xianxia, you must be in a lot of pains from your whipping and that is why you are unable to have a reaction even though I have tried my best to simulate you. I know that I can't repay you enough but this is the least that I can do to make you feel more comfortable. Please don't mind me and continue on with your sleep." There was a deep flush in Jia Ying's countenance as she said this to Xianxia, this was her first time that she was doing this and moreover she was still a chaste maiden. However she had already decided that she had wanted to be with Xianxia and hence, she was willing to do this to make him feel a little comfortable for the night. Xianxia stammered, "You don't have to do this. I can do it every night for you to ease your pain or until my brother Xianxia has recovered from his whipping." Jiaying said as she shyly looked away. "Xianxia. This is not what you think." Although it was the wee night but many of the new protégés had actually seen Jiaying giving Xianxia a blowjob and they were infuriated at how lucky Xianxia was. It may be shadowy but many of the new protégés were experienced to know what was happening. This included Chu Feng, Xiong Ba, Mei Xian, Su Shaoqing and Su Shaoxing, who were burning with envious at the sight of these two most beautiful cultivators from their cultivation cohort. Even Short Lai, who had happened to be here, was also burning with great envious as he cursed softly, "Shen Lai, you lucky bastard." Author note. 1. Shen Lai has a good night encounter compared to that other night when he was awkward with the appearance of the four most beautiful maidens in the Holy Maiden Sanctuary, right? Chapter 36 Jiaying, Do You Want to Be My Carnation Goddess? R18, you are listening at novelfull.audio. While Jiaying was blowing Shen Lai with great softness and tenderness, a fairy among the fairies Yushuan was secretly watching them. She had completely concealed herself in the darkness and her countenance was flushing at the sight that were being displayed by them. She had waited for Shen Lai to exit the palace of Saintess Xingfian, and when she saw his limping condition, she had immediately thought that he was just so and so. Maybe he had used a profound artifact to kill that 6th rank profound beast instead. That must be it. For a moment, she had really thought that he was a high-level cultivator and was almost fooled by him. It was lucky that she had been observing his pathetic-looking state by following him and therefore was not fooled by him. But at the same time she was flustered and was inhaling heavily. She had been aroused and she could feel the itchiness between her slender legs. She gasped softly as she reached between the open slit of her robe, into her short skirt and up to her carnelian-colored panties, and she could feel that her panties were wet. Not only wet, but she was also continuous dripping the lewdness of her luscious spring dew onto her thighs. When she saw that Jiaying was blowing Shen Lai's little brother with such tenderness and Shen Lai was feeling so simulated and comfortable that he did not wake up, instead he was actually moaning softly while his eyes were still closed, there was a spurt of lewd waters from her holy land and she had climaxed. It was impossible to fight off the lustful desires in her golden eyes, and she had slowly pulled down her soaking wet panties to one side of her thigh with her slender nimble fingers. Then she had startled to peel off the 2 petals of her holy land and started to rub herself, causing more lewd juices to flow and to drip down her naked bottom. She was now imaging that Jiaying was herself and she was now giving Shen Lai a blow job instead. She did not know why ever since she had met Xianxia, she was always so wet and she actually wanted Shen Lai to bang her wantonly like a depraved slave. Shen Lai was someone that had opened the floodgates of all her suppressed desires. On the pavilion below, Shen Lai was now looking at Jiaying and he had just opened his eyes because he was being simulated too comfortable. He blinked as he looked at Jiaying. If you were Shen Lai, what would you do? 1. Be an absolute gentleman and quickly ask Jiaying to leave. Put on your pants and sleep again. 2. Be totally ungentlemanly about it and ask Jiaying not to be afraid and ask her not to stop because she was being very helpful. Guess which choice did Shen Lai pick? Jiaying had shyly looked away as she said, I can do it every night for you to ease your pain or until my brother Shen Lai has recovered from his whipping. Shen Lai said the unexpected after regaining from his initial shock as he asked quietly, Maiden Jiaying, can I feel your soft breasts in my hands? Jiaying was shocked, but she had quietly moved nearer to Shen Lai where his hands could touch her and Shen Lai was already rubbing her bosoms before moving into the bodice inside her robe. Shening had a mixed look when Shen Lai was suddenly touching her while she was holding on to his little brother and to lick it with her delicate tongue. Shen Lai had suddenly moved under her skirt and he could feel her wet panties with his fingers. This shocked Jiaying, but still, she did not resist. Shen Lai asked her, Maiden Jiaying, can I touch you below, between your legs? It is only fair, right? If there was a prize for shamelessness then tonight Shen Lai would have won this award. A flustered Jiaying gave her consent by nodding her head slowly. Shen Lai was delighted as he slowly pulled her panties aside from inside her skirt and he was feeling the wetness of her holy land with his fingers. He was now feeling the wet holy land of the most beautiful maiden in his cohort now, and even his little brother was now becoming firmer. His simulations on Jiaying had caused her to flush even further and she was now spurting more of her lewd waters and her body was suddenly trembling. She had actually reached her first climax just by the mere touch of his fingers alone. Unfortunately he could not see her lofty holy land from where he was, so he asked gently, "Can I see your forbidden valley? Just a look." It was a shameless request that most maidens would refuse. But not for Jiaying. This was Shenlai's request, so. Jiaying moaned softly before she switched positions to a 69 position as she lay on the same bench as Shenlai. It was too much for her to bear. When Jiaying had exposed her two holy lands in front of Shenlai, he did not resist her, and instead he was tendering opening her jaded legs wider so that he could have a better position to lick her holy land. He was staring at the cute slit on her holy land, and he could see that beads of lewd juices were already dotting her first holy land and her bottom was completely wet. Shenlai could not resist licking her there. Jiaying was greatly flustered when Shenlai had did that, and she could not help spurting more of her lewd juices on his face and mouth as her holy land opened like the blossoming flower. Shenlai was intoxicated by the loveliness of Jiaying's holy land, so he asked her, "Maiden Jiaying, do you want to be my Carnation Goddess? I can make you into a saintess." Jiaying was perplexed as she answered dreamily as luscious silver threads were foaming from her mouth, and Shenlai's little brother was also inside her small mouth too. "What is the Carnation Goddess?" Shenlai felt her smooth and soft buttocks as he said slowly, "Only the most beautiful maidens in the Fenghua Great Continent can be my Carnation Goddess. But first, you have to help me to complete my Carnation Goddess painting first." This was not lost on all the secret watchers like Fairy Yushuwen, Chu Feng, Xiong Ba, Mei Xian, Short Yulai, Su Shaoqing and Su Shaoxing, who were all peeping from the shadows. Fairy Yushuwen had climaxed a second time when she saw the scene in front of her, and she was now rubbing herself even harder as she spurted her lewd juices high upward, and it seemed like rain water as it sprinkled into the outer court. Author note: 1. The story is about the Carnation Goddess painting right. Chapter 37 The Saintess Palace. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Saintess Palace, one of the three most powerful holy lands in the Fenghua Great Continent. An extremely beautiful maiden was sitting in her throne, and she was just wearing a thin and almost transparent silk robe that showed her perked nipples and the nakedness between her two white jaded legs. She did not mind at all because there were only maidens in the Saintess Palace and no men. Right now, she was in audience with 12 of her elders, and they were all beautiful maidens in flimsy robe, and their clothing were equally revealing. There were perplexed looks on all their countenances as they looked at their holy Saintess Beitang Fong for an answer. Holy Saintess Beitang Fong's usual beautiful countenance was brooding, and she was sighing heavily. "A great enemy of mine has now appeared," that she did not exactly find out, but her divination had warned her instead. Many of her elders were gasping with shock, for their holy Saintess Beitang Fong had actually described a foe as a great enemy for the very first time, and she had also described her foe as a great enemy of hers by specially saying so. A beautiful elder by the name of Fairy Xianxia asked, "Is there any power that our Saintess Palace can't deal with?" One must know that today's Saintess Palace was not only known as a great holy land, but it was also renowned for its numerous powerful cultivators. Holy Saintess Beitang Fong sighed woefully, "My divination has warned me of his coming. Believe me, he does have the power to destroy all 7 of the holy lands in the Fenghua Great Continent." "Who is he?" Many of the elders were gasping with great shock now. Holy Saintess Beitang Fong said woefully, "He is none other than the great demon heretic Lord Shenlai." "Great demon heretic Lord? Great demon heretic Lord Shenlai? Who is he?" Many of the elders were startled and perplexed. Holy Saintess Beitang Fong sighed heavily, "He is supposed to be dead 100 years ago and is my nemesis. Compared to the threats of the other 6 holy saintesses, they are nothing compared to this Shenlai." Fairy Xiangyun hummed as she said, "Courageous, let me look for this Shenlai and kill him for my holy saintess." Now Fairy Xiangyun was one of the 12 most beautiful extreme beauties in the Fenghua Great Continent, and she was also known as Fairy Xiangyun. Together with Fairy Yushuwen, they were considered to be the 2 most beautiful ponies of the Fenghua Great Continent. The holy Saintess Beitang Fong seemed to be in a daze and did not reply to her request. It was because she was thinking about the past. Shenlai had promised to make her into his saintess and then choose a Carnation Goddess to be his only consort. But what Shenlai did was really despicable. He had groomed her to be a saintess when she was 17 and she had followed him willingly. When she was a saintess hundreds of years later, he had told her to put away all the sagely books aside and to strip for him so that she can be a candidate of the Carnation Goddess. And she was so foolish to trust him. She had not only stripped for him but she was also asked to perform lewd acts on him in front of the other 6 sister saintesses or to lose her qualification as a candidate for the Carnation Goddess. But Shenlai was only fooling her and she felt played by him because he had not only destroyed his Carnation Goddess painting once but 30 times. He had never thought of choosing his Carnation Goddess and instead he was sexually grooming all 7 of them to be his playthings. In secret, she called him the sex fiend Shenlai and until today, she still have nightmares of him. The day that she found out that Shenlai was secretly actually playing chess with the supreme demonic monarch of the demonic race was the last straw for her and she had mistrusted Shenlai from that day onward. How could Shenlai not know that the demonic race had been suppressing humanity for thousands of years and yet he still had the mood to play chess with the supreme demonic monarch? She had realized that Shenlai was never going to defend or help humanity even though he had the means to do so. Worse, he had even given quite a few of his powerful profound treasures to the demonic race. Shenlai was a threat to humanity. Beitang Feng slowly said, Shenlai is a sex fiend, a great demon heretic lord in the guise of a human. He is all the reasons why humanity is losing grounds to the demonic races. Fairy Xianxia was filled with great dignity. I am not afraid of him. I am willing to help my holy saintess to get rid of this man. Please tell me where is he? Beitang Feng's extremely beautiful countenance was woeful and was filled with pain. I can only divine that he has appeared in the holy land of the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. Where is he actually? I do not know yet. Fairy Xianxia hummed softly, such a despicable man does not deserve to live in this world. May I know his cultivation realm? Even if he is a saint-level cultivator, there is a 3, 6, 9 power disparity. I am not afraid of him. Many of the elders were smiling now and they were muttering, he is so despicable that it is impossible that he can cultivate as a saint. It is more like a fake saint cultivation realm. For the saint and above cultivation level, there was still the fake saint cultivation level where most cultivators would likely to attain, rather than the true saint cultivation level. Similarly, there was also the fake sage saint and the fake grand sage saint cultivation level. Beitang Feng said slowly and she was trembling, he is in the grand sage saint cultivation level. Many of the elders and Fairy Xianxia were shocked with disbelief when they had heard that this Shenlai was in the grand sage saint cultivation level. Fairy Xianxia said with great disbelief, he is a fake grand sage saint. Beitang Feng said woefully and her golden eyes were distant as she remembered the happier and innocent times when Shenlai had imparted the cultivation arts to her while she was playing the zither for him. He is a true grand sage saint and he is grand sage saint Shenlai. All the elders were shocked but Fairy Xianxia was the most shocked because she had dared to challenge a grand sage saint. Fairy Xianxia was stammering now, when did humanity ever has a grand sage saint? An elder behind her whispered, I have heard that humanity did have a grand sage saint 10,000 years ago. Beitang Feng said quietly, that's right. They are the same cultivator. He is grand sage saint Shenlai. Chapter 38 The Verdant Rain Manor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Back to the Holy Maiden Sanctuary, the night between Shenlai and Jiaying were seen by many who was not mistaken that they were together. And many had thought that Shenlai and Jiaying had actually been intimated with each other. However, they had stopped short of it as Shenlai had wanted Jiaying to be a candidate of his Carnation Goddess painting. Jiaying was actually very surprised because she had expected that Shenlai would take her that night. But he did not and she thought that Shenlai was indeed a gentleman and this had caused her heart to be even closer to him. This would go on for 7 nights. And Shenlai would also be whipped for 7 nights by Saintess Xingfian, Xianxia and Nangong Shu. At the end of the 7 days, it was time for the trainee cohort to form their 10 groups of 20. Elder Li Hong, her 2 assistant elders and 8 senior protégés were now appraising everyone now. Naturally Shenlai had not really found a group yet because to him, any group would simply do. As for Jiaying, she was sticking with Shenlai no matter what. Chu Feng, Xiong Ba, Mei Xian, Su Shaoqing and Su Shaoxing were naturally in a group. As for Short Yulai, he had managed to anchor himself to a group where there were a few beauties. When it was time for Shenlai to get a group, he was slotted to a group of 18 men and Jiaying had also joined him. Jiaying was the only female protégé in their group and Shenlai was the envy of his group. Elder Li Hong said, everyone should have a leader of the highest cultivation strength. In the group, a leader's decision in the experiential training is absolute. Anyone that disobeys the leader without a valid reason will be punished by a black card. She then proceeded to say, now this is the leaders of the group. Xiong Ba was picked to the leader of his group, Di Shirtian was picked to be the leader of Short Yulai while Shenlai was picked to be the leader of his group. When Shenlai was picked to be the leader of this group, everyone was astonished because he did not fare too well during his first cultivation lesson and was in fact the last. But when Elder Li Hong heard the commotions, she quickly explained that Shenlai's latent aptitude for qi cultivation was the strongest in his group and there was also no third cultivation realm cultivator of the bronze core stage in his group. Shenlai laughed weakly, well, I guess that I am the leader of this group. Except for Jiaying who had shown pride that Shenlai was the leader of his group, the rest of his group was not happy about it. It was because they were also unhappy that Jiaying was Shenlai's woman and she was also the most beautiful maiden in their entire cohort. Just as Elder Li Hong had given the orders for the 200 new protégés to set off to the mountain wilderness, a panicky senior protégé had suddenly entered the outer court and said breathlessly. All of us are summoned to the Heaven's Gate immediately. We are under attack from the Verdant Rain Manor and their holy saintess is here personally. When they had heard from this senior protégé, Elder Li Hong and many of the protégés were shocked. The Verdant Rain Manor was the 6th biggest holy land and they had always had a friendlier relationship with this holy land. After all, the Verdant Rain Manor and the Holy Maiden Sanctuary were 2 of the smallest holy lands. Elder Li Hong gravely said, come, all of you follow my lead. Shenlai was also startled but he was more excited because the holy saintess of the Verdant Rain Manor was someone that he had known. So he turned to ask Jiaying, what is the name of the holy saintess of the Verdant Rain Manor? Jiaying was surprised that Shenlai did not know so she quietly answered him, Holy Saintess Qian Yufeng. She is also known as the Thousands Projectiles Phoenix. Shenlai laughed softly, her secret projectile skills are indeed quite legendary. Jiaying pretended to be angry as she hummed, so you are only teasing me. So you already know who Holy Saintess Qian Yufeng is. Shenlai explained with a gentle smile, oh no, I've only heard of her skills but I have no idea who is in charge of the Verdant Rain Manor. Jiaying shot him with a look of disbelief, everyone knows who is Holy Saintess Qian Yufeng and she is in charge of the Verdant Rain Manor. Why shouldn't you know? Are you a frog in a well for 100 years? Shenlai laughed weakly, actually I am. Elder Li Hong was now calling for all the protégés to be on the move now and everyone was now following her lead nervously. It was because if this was a battle then it would be a fierce battle between the 2 holy lands. When Elder Li Hong had reached the Heaven Gate, there were already thousands of protégés in the place and they were now facing the protégés of the Verdant Rain Manor which only numbered some 30. Elder Li Hong and many of the newly arrived trainee protégés looked a little disappointed as they were expecting an earth-shaking battle to take place. Holy Saintess Qian Yufeng had brought too little of her protégés and they were all from her holy land. This looked more like a visit and not an attack. Everyone could see that Holy Saintess Qian Yufeng was very fair and she was extremely alluring in her short skirt and she had a yellow cloak on her. Behind her were 30 of her protégés all in straw hats, yellow cloaks and white robe, they were all female cultivators. Nangong Shu was blocking the Holy Saintess Qian Yufeng as she said firmly, it is useless to see our Holy Saintess. Please leave immediately. She isn't free to see anyone or to have any visitors. Saintess Qian Yufeng felt indignant. She won't see me. Is she telling me a joke? Or have you taken her hostage and is controlling her from behind the scenes? I've just have a peace treaty with your elder Xianxia not long ago, and now your saintess has just sent me a transmission to cancel it. This doesn't look like her doing. I demand to see your saintess immediately. Elder Xianxia looked really awkward as she said respectfully to Saintess Qian Yufeng, "It is indeed true. Our holy saintess has indeed cancelled the secret alliance between our two holy lands. Please leave immediately." Saintess Qian Yufeng looked at the thousands of protégés that were surrounding her from the slopes and the steps of the heaven gate. "Do you think that any of you will be able to stop a lofty holy saintess like me from barging in? My secret projectiles are able to kill hundreds and my lightness skill is also number one." When she had said that, she had already flashed high above Nangong Shu with a startling speed, and she was making her way up the steep cliffs of the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. None of the hundreds of protégés of the Holy Maiden Sanctuary was able to stop her a least bit. She was not kidding that she had the best lightless skill. Just as she was confidently flying up the steep cliff while avoiding the thousands of opposing cultivators, Xianxia had suddenly popped from one of the edges of the cliff where he was stationing with elderly Hong, and he was smiling politely. "Isn't this my beautiful Yufeng?" When Saintess Qian Yufeng saw that this man looked and was speaking like Xianxia, she had turned pale immediately and had lost her vital energy due to being startled by him. Almost immediately when she was being greeted by Xianxia, she had plunged down the steep cliff down 100 meters below. Not only were Saintess Qian Yufeng's protégés stunned, Nangong Shu, Xianxia, elderly Hong and all the cultivators who saw it, were also startled when they saw that the holy Saintess Qian Yufeng was suddenly plunging from mid-air. Saintess Qian Yufeng looked as though she had just seen a ghost, and she was so startled by Xianxia that she did not know how to react. Author note: 1. I want to write a story about the POV of the 7 holy saintesses, but only one of them is guilty of crippling Xianxia. I wonder if the readers will be able to pinpoint the culprit. This is still a great mystery. Winky face. Chapter 39 Saintess Qian Yufeng. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Saintess Qian Yufeng was smirking coldly in her heart because she knew that none of the lowly cultivators here would be able to stop a lofty saintess like her from speeding through the high mountain cliffs to scale the tall walls on top of the mountain to enter into the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. As a matter of fact, not even the defensive formations here would be able to stop her. After all, Saintess Xianxia was taught by Xianxia, and so did she. Moreover, she was renowned for her lightness skill among the 7 holy saintesses. So when she was speeding up the cliff and saw the face of Xianxia all of a sudden and he was greeting her, "Isn't this my beautiful Yufeng?" She got a fright of her life as though she had just seen a ghost and lost control of her profound energies to plunge down the steep cliff. One must know that she did not have any balance or grip and was just relying on her vital breath to climb up the steep cliff. As a Saintess Cultivation Realm cultivator and not a fake Saintess Cultivation Realm cultivator, she could really hold her vital breath for a long time. That was unless someone could force her to let go of her vital breath, which was impossible for a seasoned cultivator like her. But Xianxia had really freaked her to the death because he was supposed to be dead. Even if he was a lookalike, she would get spooked by him, and moreover this Xianxia did not look like a fake because he was actually greeting her. Right now all the cultivators were startled, and they saw that the holy Saintess Qian Yufeng, supposedly renowned for her lightless skill, was plunging all of a sudden. And even her own cultivators were startled and were awkward. All of a sudden Xianxia had caught hold of her with 2 strong hands on her back and slender waist as he jumped down. Everyone was startled that Xianxia would suddenly be so nimble, and so was Saintess Qian Yufeng as she gasped softly in Xianxia's embrace, "Xianxia, it is really you." Xianxia gently said in her ears, "My beloved Yufeng, are you all right?" Saintess Qian Yufeng was gasping with astonishment in mid-air, and she had quickly composed herself. "Now I know why Xianxia has decided to sever our alliance all of a sudden. That is because she has found you, and she did not want me to know." Xianxia did not reply to her as he was now sliding down the steep cliff. After catching the holy Saintess Qian Yufeng, he did not jump down all the way but had tapped his foot on the steep cliff. Everyone could see a skewer of debris and dust as Xianxia had slid down from a height of 70 meters to the bottom of the cliff. Everyone was actually expecting Xianxia to lose his balance all of a sudden and he would roll down the steep cliff with the holy saintess Qian Yufeng. Even Nangong Shu, Elder Hua Zixia, Elder Li Hong, Jiaying and all the onlookers. It was because there was totally no balance and not even a saintess-level cultivator would accomplish what Xianxia was doing with his hands on a cultivator and he was just sliding down in a hasty manner without the use of any profound animus. To the astonishment of everyone, Xianxia had actually landed on the ground smoothly and he was still carrying Saintess Qian Yufeng. Right now he had landed in front of Nangong Shu and Hua Zixia. Almost all the cultivators that were watching, began to curse Xianxia's good fortune in not slipping and many were commenting that it must be due to holding the holy Saintess Qian Yufeng as his good luck charm and his manly pride that he did not slip at all. Xiong Ba and Chu Feng on top could not help cursing loudly, darn. This Xianxia really is lucky. But only Nangong Shu, Hua Zixia and Saintess Qian Yufeng knew that Xianxia was at the Grand Sage Saint level. However, they were also quite startled. It was because they were led to believe that Xianxia had no martial foundations and he could not make such a smooth landing. Saintess Qian Yufeng was the most stunned because she could still remember how they had accidentally caused Xianxia to drop down the desolate mists and thereafter they could not even find his corpse below. Even Saintess Qian Yufeng had no idea that Xianxia could actually land in this manner and moreover he had not used any profound arts. It was like this was the most natural thing that he could do even without a cultivation core. Now this was the most fun thing that everyone was waiting for. When Xianxia had landed with the Saintess Qian Yufeng, everyone was waiting for Saintess Qian Yufeng to push away Xianxia with great indignant and then to slap or kick him until he was bedridden for months or even years. After all, touching a holy saintess, especially one of the 7 holy saintesses, was a big no thing in the Fenghua Great Continent. But Saintess Qian Yufeng continued to hold on to Xianxia tightly and she was coyly looking at him dreamily. Xianxia had to tell her softly, we have landed. I believe that Saintess Qian Yufeng can let go of me now, right? Right now, Xianxia felt that he was now in the center of all attention and he was in the limelight. This was not something that he actually enjoyed at the moment. As he said that, Saintess Xianxia, Fairy Yushuan and the other inner court elders had also just arrived and were shocked to see Xianxia holding on to Saintess Qian Yufeng. Saintess Xianxia hummed coldly, "Holy bitch Qian Yufeng, you can let go of him now and hug me instead." Saintess Qian Yufeng had immediately let go of Xianxia and was standing on the ground. She was now humming coldly to Saintess Xianxia, "Sister Saintess Fian, what did you say just now? And you are keeping such a lofty secret from me." Saintess Xianxia hummed, "You can drop your pretenses. Maybe you are the one that had attacked his cultivation core in the past and I am keeping you away from him." Fairy Yushuan was perplexed. What are they talking about? What lofty secret and pretenses? Someone's cultivation core was attacked. Then she had turned to look at Xianxia. It is him. Saintess Xianxia smiled coldly as she pointed at Xianxia, "You lowly cultivator. Go back to your elder now. This place isn't for you to stay." Wait. Saintess Qian Yufeng was smiling with a soft chuckle. "This lowly cultivator has just saved my life. Didn't you see that just now? Therefore I will like to bring him back to be my guest." This was an impolite request for she had used will instead of would like to bring Xianxia back to be her guest. Saintess Xianxia giggled, "Your holy sect has no men. So it is inconvenient for you. Let your sister Saintess Fian helps you to reward this protege instead." All the cultivators were looking blankly because they had no idea what these 2 holy saintesses were talking about. Just a moment ago, the Saintess Qian Yufeng was trying to see Saintess Xianxia but now they seemed to be a cold wall between them. Saintess Xianxia said to Xianxia, "Now go. I will surely let you Saintess Qian Yufeng thank you in person in 7 days. For now, you have to go for your experiential training and to earn your contribution points." Saintess Qian Yufeng rolled her golden eyes. It sounded like Saintess Xingfeiyue was her superior and she was the inferior when Saintess Xingfeiyue was saying that she would allow her, a lofty holy saintess of the sixth biggest holy land, to thank Shenlai. But for now, she had decided to suppress her rages. Instead she coldly said softly to Saintess Xingfian, "Luckily I have decided to pay you a little visit or I would be played by you." Saintess Xingfian laughed softly as she pretended to pull her arm away. "I welcome my sister Saintess Yufeng to my residence." Saintess Qian Yufeng whispered softly to her and she looked annoyed. "Who did you call holy bitch Qian Yufeng just now?" Chapter 40 Experiential Training 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Elder Li Hong was now leading her 4 assistant elders and 16 senior protégés to lead the cohort of 200 newbie trainee cultivators into the mountain wilderness. Shenlai did not have a chance to talk to Saintess Qian Yufeng. It was because he was being forced to go on the sex experiential training for the newbies. He murmured weakly to himself. Fian. Why don't you just delegate me to be your gatekeeper or your librarian instead? In this way, I don't have to go for any experiential training. It is 7 days. Are you kidding with me? 7 days. But when he saw that he was with Jiaying, he was comforted and did not complain anymore. Along the way many of the trainees were staring at Shenlai with a hostile look as they were envious that he had the privilege to hold on to Saintess Qian Yufeng and had escaped unscathed. In fact, they had heard that Saintess Qian Yufeng had even wanted to invite him to the Verdant Rain Manor to be her honorable guest. Chu Feng could not resist holding back anymore as he smirked aloud. "Shenlai, you lucky bastard. For a moment of glory, you have actually dared to jump down to catch hold of Saintess Qian Yufeng. You are so lucky that you did not trip and died earlier. And you even got Saintess Qian Yufeng's recognition." Xiongba sourly hummed. Not only did Shenlai did not die from falling from such a great height, but he did not get punished from violating the holy body of the Saintess Qian Yufeng. What a lucky bastard. There were many mutterings among the trainees and everyone, males and females, were envious of Shenlai. Shenlai actually did not mind the mutterings. Instead, he had joined them by sighing aloud. Saintess Qian Yufeng is such an extreme great beauty. Alas, her body is so soft and her curves are so sensual. I got the prestige of touching her but with my hands and could even feel her bosoms on me. This is indeed a great feeling. If only I can hold her again. When everyone had heard Shenlai, almost all of them nearly vomited blood. When Jiaying had heard Shenlai, she was flushing hotly. Although Elder Li Hong was far in front, but she had sharp ears and she was also flustered by what Shenlai had just said. She turned to say sternly to all the trainee cultivators, "From now onward, I don't want to hear anyone talking behind the back of Saintess Qian Yufeng. Although she isn't our saintess, but she is still one of the 7 holy saintesses of the Fenghua Great Continent. We mustn't be disrespectful to her. Also she is a guest of our Holy Maiden Sanctuary now. Anyone that mutters any forms of disrespect will be given a black card and your black mark will be recorded inside." When she had said this, all the trainee cultivators began to keep quiet although they were still being resentful of Shenlai, and this included Shenlai's own group. After several hours in the mountain wilderness and walking with great haste, Elder Li Hong had gathered her 4 assistant elders and 16 senior protégés together as she turned to address all 200 of the newbie trainee cultivators. Do you all think that your cultivation strength alone is enough for you to stay in the Holy Maiden Sanctuary? Think again. Luck and your lucky occurrences will also play a huge part. And in this experiential training, you have to take your chances in the wilderness. I am not joking with you that you may die during the experiential training. There are desolate monsters and even demonic cultivators in these vicinities. Xiongba was muttering quietly to Chu Feng, "We are still in the vicinity of the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. There won't be a lot of dangers. Elder Li Hong is merely trying to test our guts." Chu Feng was nodding too and he was smiling. "With our current cultivation realm, it won't be something that we won't be able to handle." Elder Li Hong now ordered, I want all of you to split into your 10 groups of 20 now behind your group leader. When she had said that, all the trainee cultivators were hastily forming into their groups. As Xianxia was the leader of his own group, he took the lead in front of Jiaying, who had followed him by queuing behind him. Elder Li Hong then assigned numbers for each group. Xiongba was group number 1, Di Shitian was group number 6, while Xianxia was group number 10. Xiongba was naturally with Chu Feng, the little beauty Mei Xian, the two coily twin sisters Su Xiaoqing and Su Xiaoxing. Di Shitian was with Short Yulai. Xianxia was with Jiaying. When all the groups had been assembled, Elder Li Hong then said solemnly, "This experiential training will last for 7 days in the wilderness, and we will be nearby to lend assistance to your group. However, most of the time you will be alone in your groups and your leader is your guide. Therefore, if your leader says to go left, you must go left. If your leader says you must fight, then you must all fight. Is that understood? I want to hear you loud and clear." All 200 trainee cultivators began to echo loudly in acknowledgement. Elder Li Hong smiled at the loud acknowledgement. Good. Then she started to give a flag to each of the group leader before she returned to her original position to say aloud, "Make your way into the wilderness and as far as you can. By the end of the 7 days, insert your flag into the ground. Then we will know where you are. If you think you are in grave danger, you can also insert your flag prematurely and we will rescue you. However, you will be disqualified. At the end of the 7 days, if your group is still alive, the last 2 group that did not venture deep enough will also be disqualified." Everyone was startled and they were all muttering among themselves. This would mean that at least 2 groups of 40 trainee cultivators would be disqualified. And any group that run into trouble would also be disqualified. This meant that they not only needed to have a strong group but they would also need a strong leader that would not slow everyone down. All the group leaders were strong except for a weak scholar, and that weak scholarly-looking cultivator was actually Xianxia. Many of the trainee cultivators behind Xianxia was cursing softly, "I don't want to be disqualified because we have such a weak leader. He will probably order us to run in the opposite direction instead of facing the desolate beasts. That is because he can't aim at all. We are screwed." Elder Li Hong smiled. Let the experiential training begins now. Author note: 1. There is a mistake in the earlier chapter and it has since been corrected. Chu Feng and Xiongba are at the beginning of the bronze core cultivation realm and not silver.